what we'll hear from the client is by the time they get the team together to get on a call, to get briefed, you guys have delivered the answers. Because that's usually like a 2 to 3 week process sometimes. I got to write a scope. I got to figure out who the right people are. I got to call all these different people or agencies globally, and I got to find out who's available. And then we'll get around the table in 3 weeks. And in that time, we've mobilized the team in 2 weeks. We've briefed them, and they go for 2 weeks, and we're bringing answers back.
This is the Snarketing Podcast, for marketers by marketers, talking to marketers with just a touch of snark. Now, here are your hosts, Valerie Vespa and Matt Worst.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Snarketing Podcast. You know me, I'm Matt Worst, and you know her,
Valerie Vespa.
Well, you can introduce yourself more than just like saying your name. It almost sounds like you're an AI if you set it up that way.
I'll be whatever you want me to be, Matt.
I mean, you're not artificially intelligent.
Yeah, I know. I'm not really even intelligent, so there we have it.
You are far more intelligent than you give yourself credit for.
Oh, thank you.
You know what? What's funny is I was actually talking to someone last week about just kind of like how it's no longer important to even go to college and still be successful, which is obviously true depending on what industry you're in. But right. I do feel like with all that's happening in the Google trial and the TikTok hearing, like I almost feel like undergraduate education is not enough. You needed to have gone to law school to follow this.
Yeah,
are you keeping up with the day-to-day of all of these regulatory, potentially legally binding, Supreme Court level style legal battles?
I honestly, I have not, but I know that you have, and I have thoughts on it, but I it's like, I just feel like these things end in such a weird crapshoot because our government has no idea how to handle this stuff. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm not really following like day-to-day litigation and, courtroom drama because there are really only two outcomes and you should kind of be prepared for either of them.
Right.
But I do think that the fact that like Congress and the president and all the people we elect can't figure this out doesn't really bother me as long as the last remaining, at least U.S. branch of government, the judicial branch, keeps things somewhat in check. But we just need to do a better job of self-regulating. I think that's really what it comes down to. And I know that's hard to say, but, like Instagram is limiting what teens can do now, finally. Like they're taking some responsibility. I think we're going to start to see some things. AI is really the open question. California just passed a law about how you disclose what is and what is not AI. But
right.
Things are moving so quickly that it obviously way faster than what anything in government can actually do.
And I think that's such a fair point to make, because when you think about self-regulation, like you think about, retail clothing, like fast fashion companies being responsible for a ton of the garbage, ending up in our, landfills, or even like, CPG brands, like how, they tell us to recycle, but like me depositing my cans into a recycle bin, is that really going to overhaul things? No, I think the corporations need to be making the change, right?
Well, they're not going to make the change until the consumers demand it, right? So we can be all up in arms as, with usage of plastics. And I think that is starting to resonate, or at least it did at some point. But as soon as things get tough with economic challenges or squeezes or budget, etc., the first things that go are these more important initiatives so they can maximize their margins.
Well,
we
fair,
saw that.
but I think like going back to like tech platforms, like, even like this is an ad, like being made aware that you're actually watching an ad that's discussed by some sort of influencer was a turn of events that occurred because we felt like people were promoting things that nobody realized was actually just an ad, right?
Well, so then maybe the accountability should sit somewhere in the middle, and we ask our agency friends to be the stewards of good. Is that putting too much pressure on these big gigantic holding companies, or
It's
are
very
they just as in bed with, these their partners as I
ooh,
secretly think?
it's very funny because I know actually an agency person who had to go speak to Congress on, in regards to all the Google scenarios that were happening around privacy. And he had a very, you know, strong opinion about that. So maybe we should have him come in as a guest, actually, now that I'm thinking about
Okay, let's make a note. We'll talk to our booking team.
it.
But that's an interesting segue too, as we're talking about agencies, because the agency model has evolved pretty significantly, both on the media side and the creative side over the last really 5 years. I will say 10 years, but digital has certainly accelerated that. Integrated marketing, integrated media, digital, all these things are coming together. But how good work gets made needs to continue to really drive all of this, which is why I'm excited to talk to our two guests today. We're back in the pairs,
I
tag
know.
team guest model.
We had
Maybe,
success the first time.
yeah, maybe we'll get it even better this time. But these two guys are not husband and wife. They're not husband and husband either. They are partners in business,
Hmm.
and they are co-founders of a very innovative model, tackling and taking on creative and production. Brett and Eric from X&O are waiting in the wings, so let's not keep them any longer.
Sounds good.
After years working at some of the biggest and best agencies around, Eric Segal and Brett Banker launched X&O, an entirely new way of working with clients, brands, advertisers, and marketers. To say that it's been a success would be a massive understatement. So let's learn more about how they work, what motivates them, and why they're winning.
Brett and Eric and Brett. I'm not sure which of you is X and which of you is O, or if that's even a thing, but I would like to first just welcome you and thank you for joining us here on the Snarketing Podcast.
I think we could spend the full hour we have together trying to answer that question, Matt.
Yes.
Which is X and which is O? Is it like a Hollywood
Yeah.
Squares thing? Or
I don't fucking know, to be honest with you, Brett. Do you have a good answer?
Well, I am excited to dig into the creative brains and explore topics of that nature and others. But before we really get into the right side of those brains, I think it would just behoove all of us to get to know each other a little bit, since none of us have ever actually worked together, although I may or may not have been involved in an interview at some point many years ago with you, Eric.
I left quite an impression, clearly.
Well, I'll be honest. COVID kind of screwed up my short-term memory and my long-term memory, but my middle memory is great. So you didn't occupy that phase. But you do, as we go back and look at like the big names that have been on top of the doors that you've walked into, Anomaly, Gray. I mean, they are big ones. What was the tipping point that made you say, fuck this, we're going to do something radically different with X&O?
I think that was this is Eric talking. For those of you who aren't looking at our faces, you can I will be the more nasally voice on this episode. I don't know if there was like a tipping point per se, right? I do think this was Brett and I have worked together for a really long time. You just mentioned two agencies, and I think for many people who've been doing this as long as Brett and I have, it probably would have been at a much longer list of shops in that time. We call ourselves
we don't like to
serial
name drop, so we're just gonna go.
No, but I think we spent a long time at both of those shops. I mean, always look to sort of find a home, right, and build and shape a culture and an environment and an agency and a business. And that's one of the things I think that attracted, Brett and myself to each other, right? There was always this sort of like understanding of, Brett comes from the account side of things and I come from the creative side of things, but we always shared an appreciation for both and the strategy and the business of it all. And I think we just always, on top of like becoming friends at those shops, just constantly talked about the business, right? In a way that was larger than, our immediate experience. And I think just notice a lot of things shifting in the industry constantly. And then there was always that just sort of mutual desire. We both had that entrepreneurial itch to scratch that was just like, man, I want to own my own fucking thing and do my own fucking thing. But we never jumped just to start our own agency. We always said it had to be, we needed to like have a really clear mission and point of view for whatever we were going to build, as opposed to, I just want my own version of this.
Yeah, and I would say that the thing that we always talked about, especially as you get more senior and in the business, is you get further away from day-to-day problem solving, and you get more mired in, the bureaucracy of big agencies and the company running departments and employee development. All that's important, but we wanted to get back to, how do we get stuck in with really important sticky client challenges and solve them really quickly with experts and people that we think can help us solve that problem. And I think that was something that we kept coming back to. We kept asking ourselves too, like, I'm sure a lot of agencies talk about this, which is, why are we so great in a pitch? And we were like, can we bottle that up? And you're so good in a pitch because it's senior exceptional talent, handpicked for the question. You're moving at pace and speed. There's no time to second guess. You've removed hierarchy. And there's usually real clarity of what you're doing, because that's coming from a sharp brief that his client's written and what they need, and they need it in 3 weeks. So we also wanted to try to bottle that up. Like, how do we bottle up that process? Which is what X&O has some semblance of now.
So, like, feeding off of what you guys are talking about, like the agency model disruption. So, the traditional agency has been criticized for being slower and cumbersome for a myriad of different reasons. And so, X&O is aiming to sort of fix that. Can you walk us through how your model streamlines that process, and how are your clients feeling about it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the sort of pitch as an analogy is a great one, because, to Brett's point, you're getting the senior thinkers, you're getting them really fucking focused for a very short amount of time. And that kind of is our model. So we are exclusively super senior. And this is not a knock on junior or mid-level talent, it's just not our model, right? I used to love mentoring and growing junior talent. It's just not our business right now. And there's an aspect to agencies, which is, well, you got to give everybody their shot. You got to give everybody a chance to weigh in and then run it up each rung of the ladder. And all that does is, like, it obviously kills speed, right? It's inefficient if something is really hot and pressing. And you get a lot of opinions, which sometimes can help build an idea, but really kills creative instinct, right? So we are exclusively super senior talent. This is folks who are ex-C-level, ex-executive level from both agency and brand side background. So chief creative officers, heads of strategy, heads of design on the agency side, ex-CMOs, heads of growth, heads of innovation from the brand side. And then not only do we only use super senior people, but when we put them on a project, they are 100% focused on that project. So again, something you just can never get in the agency world, because the higher up you go in the agency world, the more things you got to juggle, whether that's 10 clients who are, on your plate and in your purview, or the careers and growth of your department, right? Building that department and carrying that 100 people's, well-being and feelings. Like, we've kind of taken that out of the process altogether. So we have super senior folks, 100% focused, working in really short sprints that allow them to lean on their experience, their talent, and their taste.
Another thing, and you guys can enlighten me and fill me in on this, but another thing that I experienced in my 15 plus, I don't know how many years in agency life, sometimes it comes with egos and politics and, personality clashes, but you guys have built this network of top tier talent that aren't really in it for the credit, right? There is some degree of anonymity or pseudonyms I think it was like the Reservoir Dogs approach that you were calling it.
Kind of,
But
yeah.
how does this add to the magic, if you will? And do clients think this is cool, or do they think it's a little bit like cloak and daggery at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a good question. I think the experts like it because it allows them to take big swings. It's unencumbered. There's not a lot of check-ins. They don't have to stop and get ready for the meeting, right? We deliver that work in the meeting. So it allows them to work. It's literally proverbial headphones on, and they're just all you're paying for is their thinking. And I think that's really liberating for strategic and creative thinkers. So I think the network loves working in this fashion. And clients, we haven't had a lot of them ask. I mean, some do. I want to meet that person, but it's not. It hasn't happened very often where they feel like they need to know who, like that it's a cloak and dagger, or that it's a that there's some kind of ruse that they're not meeting the people that are delivering the work. Like that hasn't come up because we haven't had any returns. So we've meaning we've had 35 projects and no one said I want my money back.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been nefarious. That's not what I meant by cloak and dagger. I just
No,
you know, at some
I
point,
get that. Yeah.
No, but like it actually has been something that's been noted and appreciated on the client side. Like we were a little, look, this is the model we cooked up, and we, ran it by a few client friends of ours early days, and it was just like, I don't know, that's different. I'm not sure, that might scare a lot of people off. And we've had some questions. Like we just got off a call this morning with a potential new client, ran a proposal by them, and what we present in our proposals is, we call them the micro CVs, right? It's a silhouette of who this person is, of an actual specific person, and like 2 or 3 lines about their experience, their accomplishments, and why they're right for this business. And it's cool. None of the it's not even pushback. The interrogation is more like, hey, have they done this? What are they going to bring to the table regarding my particular challenge? Not who the hell are they? I need to meet them. I think there's a lot of trust in, we just say, hey, it's about the output. You're not buying a team of people like you do in an agency. You are buying an output, and you're buying our promise to deliver an answer that is going to be impactful for your business. And it's fucking fun. Honestly, the Reservoir Dogs thing is spot on. We give our people aliases. So a la Reservoir Dogs, they get a color. They get to pick their color. It's grown to be a bit bigger than the basics, pinks and greens and oranges. People get to invent their own, and a la 2024, it's gender neutral, so you can't figure out. So we use an MX mix prefix. Yeah, so it's Mex marvelous. Lots of fun color names that people have chosen for themselves.
I mean, I love this. The only thing that might get confusing is when you are submitting your Cannes Lions or awards submission nominations. People might get really confused on that long list. That sounds very colorful, but I don't know if anyone's subjected to that yet.
You're all wearing like big like Danger Mouse hats on. You go to pick up your
Oh
award.
man, that would be so fun if we invited somebody up on stage like that.
Matt,
We're actually
you brought something up before that is important, which is, we built this. You are asking people to release credit a bit because they are anonymous, and I think that's a bit of a changing tide in the industry, that people just want a good question that they can solve and feel like they're putting their expertise into the world. And if they don't get to go make it or get the credit for it, I think, and it's refreshing to see that less people have found that as a deterrent to working in our network.
I feel like it's like similar to like gamers like having their own avatar and kind of being this version of themselves, like their best version of themselves. So I love it.
Yeah, you're the Daft Punk of the agency world.
there you
go. So going back to sort of the ad industry and this sort of massive, change over the last like decade, what is your take on like the current state of the agency world? And, is something like the traditional AOR model dying or dead, or do you think there's still sort of a place for that?
Well, no, actually, Eric, I would say it's never going to die because some clients need end-to-end engagement, right? You do need an agency that can take on all 30 projects in your calendar year. And like consultancy like objects or entities like X&O, we can't do that, right? We're not staffed that way. So I think a lot of
That's right.
clients, it's never going to go away, but I think the inefficiencies of the model are more apparent today than they've ever been. And that's why models like X&O are becoming, I think, more well received because we cut out a lot of the inefficiency.
Well, you sometimes work alongside those traditional agencies.
Yeah.
They may see you as, do they see you as competition? Like, how do you navigate those waters of collaboration when you're supposed to be partners, but you might actually
It's a good question.
long-term be
Yeah.
competitively
Yeah.
frenemies for a specific project in the future?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think agencies always have that. Look, even in our past, when we were the lead agency of an IAT, you always have that cover your paper, protect at all costs mentality, and everyone gets in a room and they go, "Hey, we're only here to do our part. We're not gonna steal your business." And then behind the scenes, the social agencies writing scripts, and the TV agency is trying to sell PR activations and all of that. So I always think there is that. There's a very sort of unhealthy dose of fear on the agency side, and that not made here syndrome is very real. We partner with agencies, but we're not working sort of hand in hand with them, if that makes sense, right? A lot of times we're brought in to build a foundation or nail the creative platform when an agency hasn't, or come crack the really big, gnarly, complex problem and do a handoff to the agency so that they can then take it and run with it and do some of those things that Brett was just talking about in terms of, hey, giving me my full content calendar or my activations for a year. So we're kind of, I think brands are seeing us as a playing a clear role in their overall sort of roster of partners.
Makes sense.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
A lot of brand. Well, I was just saying, a lot of clients end up being they were former agency, right?
And you're right, though, Matt. We are creating probably a bit of a healthy anxiety in the agency world right now. And I think there's truth in that, because when you say to a client, you can get access to exceptional and senior talent only, 100% focused, and we can solve something in 3 weeks for a fifth of the cost of what an agency would charge you, and it's going to take them 3 months. If I was an agency, that would make me nervous. So I do think when we enter the scene, it does sometimes create a little bit of anxiety within an IAT structure. And I think agencies should be responding to that with some in-house model that allows them to be more nimble and flexible and work in a different pace.
So, like, talking a bit about your clients, the role of the CMO is certainly evolving in this fast-paced marketplace and environment. And you actually have a Forbes top 50 CMO in your network, which is very cool. How does X&O help CMOs stay ahead of the curve while avoiding burnout, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I think one is the pace at which we can partner with and solve some of the problems that are keeping them up at night, right? I mean, our mission is to be the CMO secret weapon, right? We want them to
Right.
call us and say, whether it's business strategy, a brand strategy, innovation, product development, or comms, if I don't solve this, I'm not going to be here next year. And I think it's changed in that. And 20 years ago was I find my forever partner agency and they're going to solve everything for me. I don't think that's the way they think about it anymore. It's like, just surround myself with really smart, senior, and exceptional talent, and to know that companies like X&O, and there are others like that, where I can tap into almost on demand, get that talent surrounding my problem and me, in days or a week, hopefully is giving them just another option, but also some confidence that, wow, I can crack a problem in a month, that if I engaged with an agency and went through an RFP and a pitch, that's going to take 6 months. It's going to be significantly more expensive. So I'm hoping, we always talk about, are these models a threat when another one pops up that's similar to ours? And we always say, no, we want to know them and we want to help them. Like, let's, rising tide lifts all boats. I think more of these models need to be out there so that CMOs can have the confidence that they can solve some of those really big, sticky challenges quickly. And the job's so different today than it used to be. I mean, the remit is just expanding for CMOs, and that's scary for them, I'm sure.
So I've been telling you about Lead Feeder for a number of episodes, right? That's because they're the best in the business at what they do. From lead gen to account-based marketing, Lead Feeder is the ultimate B2B sales tool. Identify the companies already visiting your website and convert them into high-value leads. They're changing the way marketers think about buyer intent data, and they're offering free trials to all Snarketing Podcast listeners. Check them out at leadfeeder.com.
The idea of like fractional work is gaining traction, of course, and probably plays into a lot of what you guys do. So as far as leveraging this to deliver results in days, weeks, hours, is this a model that you see expanding for you and just in general in the marketing world?
Yeah, I mean, we're because of the way we approach it, because we're saying everybody that we use is super senior and 100% focused, our bet is that they can do more in less time than everybody's used to, because these are the type of people who are, previously have been skimming, right? Hey, give me 12 minutes of brilliance right now. Help piss out this fire, help crack this thing, run into a room. And this is what my old job felt like. Run into a room, look at all this really quickly, use your instinct and go, which of these do you think is going to work? And, you hope that you were on that day. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas so some people look at what we're doing and going, how could you do this in a week? Or how can you do this in 3 weeks? And I'm going, yeah, but it's 3 weeks of focus, or it's a week of focus, or even 3 days of pure focus, as opposed to, we had 3 months, but you got 10 minutes of these brains at a clip. And that brain had to reboot the second it entered the room because it was already spinning on that last thing. So I just think we're built for this intentionally. And this just goes back to when you ask the motivation behind X&O was just yes, everybody's always been asking for, can I have that faster? Can I have that cheaper? It's not built necessarily for that, but it is built for the speed that the market moves at. Context. It's built for context. We talk about when you win as an agency, when you win a piece of business or you win a project, yes, you try to staff it with brains and talent that is appropriate, but you can only do that so well. You're really looking around and you're looking at resource sheets and going, who's got enough time available? You can maybe go, all right, we're going to pull her off of this and pull him off of this and reshuffle the deck chairs a little bit, but there's only so much you can do. And then guess what? 3 fucking weeks from then, the CMO leaves and a new person comes in and goes, I got a new agenda. Or the sales numbers come in and you go, oh, we got to pivot. Or something happens in culture and you go, shit, we can't say that anymore. And then you look at your team and you just go, yeah, they might be talented. They might be brilliant people, but are they right anymore for the context? So we are built for the context of the moment. And going back to that CMO job, it's so much more layered than it used to be, right? And so they need to surround, and they're under so much more pressure than they used to be. We read some article, it was I'm going to butcher the stat, but I know it was over 50% of CEOs don't trust their CMOs. Talk about not being on the right footing there, right? So you need to surround yourself with talent to juggle all that you have to juggle, right? And so to say you're going to get that from one big, one-stop shop partners, really, it's hard. And then to say, all right, well, then I'm going to go the other way and I'm going to hire 8 boutique agencies and consultancies. Who has the bandwidth to go through all those RFPs? Who has the money to hire all of them on retainer? So we just offer a different type of solution. They're talking to me and Brett, but it's not our expertise that they're getting someone who's laser focused on the thing that they need help with today. So whether that's activating at retail or front end innovation or deep digital or, the creator economy, publishing, luxury goods, whatever that is, we're bringing somebody who's who knows that game inside out so that you go, all right, at least I feel like I got somebody who can like pick up the pieces like right where they are for me.
I love it.
Well, I think that you nailed the checklist. As someone who has a CMO title, I may have to edit out that part where the stat where the CEOs don't trust the CMO, because I know my CEO listens to this. So we'll just have to pretend like that didn't happen. But one of the interesting things I think about is, as the AOR model, where they've got insights and analytics people just like constantly looking at stuff, and they can optimize for the next campaign and the next campaign and the next campaign. You may not always have that luxury. So I'm curious how you guys think about measurement, or thinking like how you define success in a world where data is king, right? Or queen. But how do you measure the success of your projects?
Yeah, look, that is a good question. It's come up a few times because clients are, one of their questions might be, if you're only with us for 4 weeks and it's upstream, you're not there when I make it and I put it in market. So how do I ensure that what you gave me 6 months ago is going to be successful? And one is getting clear on what that has to do. What are your KPIs, and ensuring the right brief is written by us, the right experts are going to get you there. And then it's staying in touch with that client. If we can help along the way to ensure that when it's moving towards market, we can help ensure the delivery is right, and that it's being put in the right place so it hits those marks, we will. But we're usually so far upstream from the moment it hits the market that that's not our, we're being evaluated based on, when we deliver our brief, did we deliver the right answers to that brief? Do you believe the ideas, whether they're strategic or creative, are going to be business changing? And if we agree on that, then you can hire us again down the road if you want us to take it to execution or get it closer to market. But we're not really, we've separated the thing that, having been at an agency, it's like vision and execution are put together at an agency. I'm going to pitch it for free. You're going to buy me. And then, and then I'm going to go execute it. And I'm going to claw the money back in execution with a team of 10 or 15, and we're going to do it for a year. We don't have that luxury. So the only thing we can deliver, our successes in those 3 weeks, we've over-delivered immediate and actionable ideas and answers to a brief that you feel can change your business. So like, it's all on that. And if we don't, you're never going to call us again. You're going to go, man, I don't know what to do with that work, or that work isn't fit for my business. It's not right for the brief. So we've got to be like, every agency should be this, but our focus is on clarity of the ask and ensuring that we have agreement on exactly what we're delivering in the brief before we even move. Because like we can't swing and miss. There's no room for that.
Do both of you can answer this? I'd love to hear more about it. Like, are there any case studies or examples of responses that you've had that just exemplifies the work that X&O does? I just love your thoughts on
I mean, I have a couple of client quotes in my head, actually, and they're not case studies, but just one was, and it's going to uncover something that might be an apprehension for a client, but he said it was a leap of faith, but it was the greatest agency fee I ever spent. And that says a lot in 10 words, which is, I didn't know who the people were that were going to work on it. I couldn't believe maybe that you were going to deliver that in 3 weeks, but but the price was right. So I'll give it a swing. And then what came back was, man, you did that in 3 weeks. And that's what we're hearing a lot of. Or, it was incredible work in a fifth of the time for a fifth of the price from what I was typically getting from my holding company, from like a massive brand, top 50 brand that spends a lot of money with a holding company. And that just tells you that there's an appetite for a different way of solving this that is a totally different equation. What we hear all the time is, for these big holding companies that try to bring together solutions and people from different companies, which is a great model in principle. Mm-hmm. But what we'll hear from the client is, by the time they get the team together to get on a call, to get briefed, you guys have delivered the answers. Because that's usually like a 2 to 3 week process sometimes. Mm-hmm. I got to write a scope. I got to figure out who the right people are. I got to call all these different people or agencies globally, and I got to find out who's available. And then we'll get around a table in 3 weeks. And in that time, we've mobilized the team in 2 weeks. We've briefed them, and they go for 2 weeks, and we're bringing answers back. And that's a really
powerful.
Those are the types of, when we get that feedback from a client, we go, we're on to something.
Right. So you mean to tell me that for all these years, the 8 layers of seniority required for a meeting, from SVP to VP to associate VP to senior director to associate director to senior manager, they're not necessary at all
Matt,
of these
I know
companies.
I know it's
We
hard.
have an internal mantra here, which is, unlike a dip, 7 layers does not make it better.
I like that. Although I do love a good dip. Can we?
So do we.
It's good. The layers are good in the dip, man. Good in the dip. Keep them there.
Don't disparage the dip. Disparage
you may have
the
just played yourself out of a nacho commercial for the Super Bowl for Tostitos. So good, nice work, guys. Look, the holding company model. I feel like the pendulum swings back and forth every few years in terms of efficiency and consolidation and all this. But I don't know that your model, and look, not everyone wants to be acquired. Independent agencies can go on forever. But in 5 years, your model may not really be conducive for acquisition, because sometimes a lot of times you're buying the people and the client rosters, which if yours are a bit more fleeting by design, that doesn't necessarily look as attractive on a P&L for someone. But where do you guys see yourselves going in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually sort of, I disagree with that.
Yeah, we were both.
Tell me why I'm wrong. We'll edit that out too.
What are you out of? Yeah, no, it's all, keep it in there. No, look, I think, we often say, and not to get it deep in it, I mean, we can talk exit strategy and all that, but we often say we sit somewhere between rather than going, we're not an agency, and it being like a dirty word, forget that. Just in terms of a business model, we sit between a consultancy and an agency. We often say our model is like if a consultancy and an agency had a baby. Because of some of what you were talking about before, Valerie, we're delivering something we think is immediately actionable, but we're not putting work into market tomorrow. Our KPIs are different. You're calling us for very different questions. We have CMOs who have agencies of record calling us to solve the things that are keeping them up at night, right? So we play a much different, there's a very different value equation, right? Not to say that one's bad, this one's good. We just have a different role. We operate on a very different margin than many agencies, which would be favorable for acquisition. Now, acquisition by whom? A holding company, maybe. A PE firm, maybe. It really depends, because our offering could be put to different types of use. And we've also talked about, honestly, even in a holding company model, and I'm not saying that's the way we'd want to go, X&O could be seen as a massive new business pipeline. Because, and we, by the way, we don't have retained clients, but we have repeat clients. Mm-hmm. But if you think about the next phase, when you say, how do we work with the big agencies, right? If you're taking the idea, the critical thinking, the thought leadership from us, and then handing it off to one of your other agency partners to execute, maybe you're handing that instead to one of your family, to an agency in your family, who can then move into more of a retained business, right?
Yeah, and the other side of that, and we're of the same brain, because I was going to say the same thing Eric just did. And the other side is the people. When you said, Matt, they're anonymous. If I were an agency right now, small or large, I would be creating a fractional faction within my agency that are not retained. They're signed to be this pool of fractional talent that I can tap into to sprint 100% focused towards. I'd be stealing our model. And if you acquired us, right now we have 105, but in 5 years, we'll probably have 500 people that are ideally the top 1% of marketing and communications talent that are loyal to the X&O model and like working in that model and have sharpened their ability to work at that pace. And all of a sudden, that talent pool is yours. That's highly valuable, I think.
Totally fair. Absolutely.
Yeah, I get it. I've been on both sides of that, and I'm not that you're playing for an acquisition anytime soon, if at all, but I've been on both sides of it, and the model is important. The people are important from a chemistry and personality perspective. Maybe you just don't need to list the names of those people in a spreadsheet during a during an M&A process, I guess. But
Right.
they're buying you guys anyway.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
to commercialize.
Yeah.
You, but
No, and honestly, at some point, that is one of the things we think a lot about is sort of that next, that next phase of growth for us will require, we say we have no employees, it's just Brett and myself and, a contractor network. But at some point, we're going to have to expand, who X&O is on the inside.
Yeah.
So if either of you were given a magic wand to wave and change one thing about the marketing and or advertising industry, what would it be?
Man, like Men in Black device, I'll take that and erase the adherence to legacy thinking. If I could just press the button and go, that legacy thinking you all have that I have to hire, a dinosaur agency of 1,000 people and they have to do everything in I would be in front of every CMO's office hitting that laser button and just
flashy
going,
lighty thing. Yeah,
the flashy light thing, because there's just a different way to think about it today. But what Eric and I come up against a lot is that legacy thinking of like, well, wait, what, what aisle are like, what do you do? Are you a digital agency? Are you a above the line agency? Are you a shopper agency? And our response is always, we're a totally different way to shop. We are all of those things, not as an always on entity, but we have the discipline and expertise and experts in the model to crack any one of those problems. But we're going to do it differently. We're going to do it at pace, and we're going to do it with creative and strategic vision setting. We're not going to go end to end and dot every T and I and take it to execution. And that for some clients is hard to wrap your head around. Just the idea of my board wants me to do a pitch, so I got to do a pitch. I got to get 5 agencies in to give me all their stuff for free, and then I'm going to do a chem session, then I'm going to do a round 1 tissue, and then I'm going to do a final, and that's a 5-week process. That's just so ingrained in their brain.
That's the one thing. I think you nailed it, man. That's the one thing I would change. Like, if you want specificity, people giving their shit away for free. I just think until everybody says I'm out, it's not going to change. And we know so many agencies who are starting to, agencies, companies, consultancies, whatever, we're starting to pump the brakes on that and going, you got it. There's a value in this, and I can't give you that for nothing. But there's always somebody else who's like, I'll do it. Because there's so much money to claw back on the back end if you can retain that client for a year and then change the team and change the FTE structure and pump work into your studio. But that's the one thing I changed.
Well, I don't think that's specific.
This isn't free anymore.
That's not unique just to your piece of this industry. I think that's true with media platforms and publishers and tech who want to give you that little taste to get you hooked, and then will hopefully maintain those relationships. But as we all know, relationships in this industry are fleeting, right? The minute you win business is the minute you start losing it. A chief strategy officer once told me, which I love and hate at the same time. But not
I actually love that, Matt. Maybe if you can give me that person's name, I might see if I can get some. I'll pay him some royalties, because honestly that's our model, though, is that when we win a piece of business, we're not going to lose it because it's 3 or 4 weeks, which allows us to be incredibly honest, forthright. We don't pull punches from the brief development process. What do we saw? You think you need this? We actually think you need that, because there's not that I would say there's nothing to lose on the back end. We always want that client to come back a second, third, and 5th time, but you're not protecting a year of revenue. And there's unfortunate trepidation, fear, and bad decision making that gets imbued into that process because of you're hanging on to revenue. You're just like, I got to make that decision, even though it might not be right, because I have to envision a world if that revenue goes away. What does that do to my company? Like, we just don't have to struggle with that, at least as much as the other ones. It's a really good line.
Well,
I like it.
You offered to pay royalties, which is nice, because nothing should be given away for free, right? So there you go.
Exactly.
I mean, the other piece of that is, a mentor of mine who I think most of us know, Sarah Hofstetter, who has not yet been a guest on this podcast, but maybe will at some point. She used to tell me and talk about, in a similar mindset, operating with healthy paranoia, where that fear of loss guides like an overzealous commitment to perfection and service. But, I think very few people actually can keep it in a healthy range, and
Yeah.
it borders into
But
unhealthy.
but it's funny, man. But it's funny. Why do you need that paranoia? What that paranoia does, I like that, because what that does is it forces the senior leadership to keep an eye on it, right? And to commit to delivering what you promised when you first signed that client up. We don't have to have that paranoia because we're only delivering that promise from the go, and then we know it's going to end. There's an end date, so we can keep it full throttle, whereas an agency can't. You have to dial it back to make it economically viable.
Yeah.
Well, the paranoia I feel at the moment is looking at the clock and knowing that you guys probably have super expensive billable rates. So I want to let you get back to that. But before we do, we end like all totally uncreative and unoriginal podcasters. We end with a lightning round. That's what we do. So this is a real test, especially for you, Eric, where you walk into a room and have to actually get the right answer and then walk out. So no pressure, but it sounds like you guys are used to this. What is your resource set for creative inspiration, whether right now or on an ongoing basis? Are you just like looking at and digesting all creative in the market? Do you read newsletters? Like, where do you get it from?
Man, life, not the industry. I just think that's just open your eyes, be more present out there. To me, it's like it's off the newsletters a little bit. For me personally, what is starting to percolate in culture? What are people like actually talking about rather than threading about? Is that what you say now? Threading about? You know what I mean? It's more sort of music, TV, movies, the greater sort of cultural zeitgeist for me. But it's always been like that for me. I've never been, there are some, Brett and I talk about it all the time. And honestly, frankly, sometimes we're looking for those people for our network. I am killing the idea of this being a lightning round, aren't I? This is like a drizzle. This is like a drizzle. Yeah. I'll answer this, but like I've never been one of those people that like has been obsessed with advertising. I like the amalgamation of it all. The commerce meets the art, not the ads. And sometimes we need those people who get what's going on in that world. But like that's never been my inspiration. It's always been sort of culture writ large, I think.
Okay, well, horrific follow-up question then. What's your all-time favorite advertising campaign?
Oh my God. All-time favorite. Jesus.
Or just one that resonates. You're like, fuck, I wish I could have been a part of that. Or the FOMO kicks in every time you see it pop up on YouTube.
I don't know. I don't know why this just popped into my head because I never would have said, but I do remember there was a moment. This is so weird. This is not my all-time favorite, but it just popped in my head. It's the fucking lightning round. The very first time I saw the Geico caveman, when that thing, the first one, before you knew he was there and the camera pulled on, like panned offset, they were shooting a thing and the guy goes, "It's so easy, a caveman can do it." And he was the boom operator. And I just remembered going like, that's the type of fucking creative thinking. Like that just got me going. I was just like, man, was that so fucking off kilter and surprising. And then I immediately thought of, the client who bought that too. And I'm just like, and I knew in that moment, it was like a 15-second ad. And I was just like, man, there's years ahead of this thing. And I love seeing that in general is like the beginning of something that I know has like a super, super long tail. That's when I get personally really excited. When I used to review work in a room, I was always looking for that. Like I love building those long-term platforms like that.
Okay, so Brett, for you, since you may talk to clients or email them more directly on a more frequent basis, if you could ban one piece of ad jargon forever or some sort of, lingo or buzzword, what do you want to just kill from the lexicon?
Probably because it creeps me out as a term, but also because of what it means. Let us flesh it out. Never, it sits really wrong with me to say it aloud, but also this idea that the thought that you brought an idea forward that has yet to be thought through the right channels and where it should show up and how deep it can go just means it's lazy if the question's been asked. And that is just a term I want to eradicate. It just makes me uncomfortable.
Well, we'll have to do
I think I've said that to you. I will stop. I think I've said that to you.
Have you? All right. Well, shame on you.
This was his passive aggressive way of bringing it up to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I
totally.
actually fed Matt that question so I could
Please stop.
finally let you know that you've been driving me crazy for 17 years.
Noted.
There you go.
You've been getting under my flesh.
We're nothing if not gruesome therapists for the marketing industry. That is what we do here. Speaking of gruesome, what guilty pleasure do you guys engage in when it comes to media? Is there a TV show? Is it TikTok? A podcast maybe that you listen to?
Man, I'm not that guilty.
Do
you have one?
Guilty. I don't know. I'm always on the hunt for my next TV show. It's nothing guilty, but like I've been devouring lately. I was really fucking disappointed in the Bear season 3, I will say. But The Boys is a fun, guilty, just gory, irreverent romp. I'm into that one. I like TV. I don't watch a lot of it, but it's like give me like one episode a night of something good.
I would say for me the one
down.
that's probably the most like I don't think people would see this as being on brand for me or like on my brief. But I can really get lost in Naked and Afraid. There's something about surviving. It's probably just having worked in advertising for 25 years that it's a daily struggle to survive. That I just love seeing people get through it with bare bones and like, how am I not going to die today? There's something about it that's really invigorating.
I mean, it's too bad the name is taken because it would be a great agency name.
It would be. Naked and Afraid is actually it is symbolic of what we do. But I will say it's that show that if it's ever on and I'm watching it and my wife or a friend comes in, I think I might even watch one with Eric when we were vacationing together and I got looks. I mean, they were just like, really? This is what we're watching right now? But it is one that I can kind of shut off. Like I somewhat know what the narrative's going to be and it probably has a lot of microcosm in my own life.
I mean, yeah, and it's a show that could go on forever until someone dies, right? Like that.
Not that I'm wishing that. It's over.
That will be the season series finale. Is we killed one. There, that was
That's
it.
Right. Yeah.
So, if we're gonna totally exclude Naked and Afraid from this next and final answer, if you were each gonna describe X and O in just one word, what would it be?
We did this exercise, didn't we, Brett?
We did, yeah.
I think we got it down to 7 words. Oh man, I don't know. The word dynamite. The word dynamite just came to mind.
Dynamite. I like that. Man, it's really hard to boil your entire business model and company to one word.
The ultimate brief.
And look, I'll be more account with it, but it's like it's roadmap. Like that's what you get when you come to us is you actually get the roadmap for the right answer, and you get it quickly. And I don't think most agencies work at that kind of pace to deliver that kind of roadmap quickly. That's not as interesting. I like Dynamite better though.
No, I'm putting a stick of dynamite in the word roadmap.
It's a roadmap. I might do it too.
Here's another one for you. Convicted. I like that.
Anyway. He went back to our notes. That was the one. That was one of the words.
That's a good one.
I like
that. Valerie and I are grateful that you let us join you on this journey, whether there was a map or not, I'm not sure. But we didn't go off a cliff, so that's.
I think we did okay.
Yeah,
appreciate you guys having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was great. I really appreciate your time.
A lot of fun getting inside your brains, and look, maybe I already work for you. No one will ever know.
That's right. Actually, I have one question for both of you. You're working for us tomorrow. What is your name? What color do you choose? Your MX what, Valerie?
Vavoom.
Ooh, I like that.
Because I'm 2 B's.
Matt.
Max Vavoom.
And
mine is Max Shelley. I am coming out of my turtle shell, but I'm turtle shell green. But I come out.
Ooh.
I surprise you, and then I retreat back when you don't need me anymore.
Ooh, I love it. Real thoughtful, man. Oh,
Wow.
I dig it.
Thoughtful. Just giving you the turtle head. I like it.
You need a turtle to move slow, to really, really, really just stop.
All right.
I'm your guy.
I love
Well,
that.
I will tell you both this. I just did a quick search in our network, and they're both available. So we'll
Exactly.
we'll offline next steps.
Perfect.
Yeah. That was great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
In the time that it took you to listen to that episode, Brett, Eric, and team probably banged out like 5 projects. That's what they do, and that's who they are. Thank you for joining Val and Matt, and definitely reach out to these guys if you're looking for a different way to work with creatives. They got it all figured out.